Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and today we are doing a massive discussion that's been the waiting for 7 straight years, if not more. And I got some of my favorite fellow Metroid content creators. You got Dave. How you doing, buddy?
Good, man.
Yeah. Rob?
Hey, I am living the dream, I think, along with you guys.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Joey?
I'm on Cloud 9, or should I say Cloud Prime 4.
Let's go. We're going beyond today. Finally, the game has been shown off. And when I say shown off, I don't mean the famous PNG with the blue space thing in the background, which I do love, but there's nothing there. We're talking about an actual trailer with actual gameplay and story bits, and enough for us to dissect and analyze for a good little while, and it's leaving us extremely pleased, so we're excited to talk about it today. I will just jump in. Just talking about how happy we are that finally Prime 4 has been shown off. So guys, just go into it. By the way, everyone's channels, social media will be linked in the description below.
I'll go first, I guess, real quick. I know Rob's and you all, everyone had a lot to say, but but yeah, it's been a crazy ride for this game. We've been waiting for it for 7 years. We rebooted the development, and now here we are. Finally, we're getting to see Metroid Prime 4. And yeah, I was actually in shock when I saw the game. I wasn't even sure what I was seeing. When they said Galactic Federation, I was almost thinking, oh no, this better not be Federation Force. When you see those words, they almost get like Metroid Dread, some dread in you. But I was like, let's just wait. I'm not gonna go crazy, and then let me just wait and see this thing, because like I had a comment in my video saying like, you didn't know what it was when you saw the words. I'm like, hey man, you gotta be sure when you see this first.
We got trust issues.
So then when I finally saw the game in action, I was just like, no way, this is it. I mean, I was like just in disbelief. If you watch my reaction, I was just kind of quiet for a second there, just kind of mumbling to myself. I didn't even know. I couldn't even fathom what I was seeing. I'm not the like screaming kind of guy. So like for me, that was like very big reaction for me. I was like extremely happy and shocked, and just like thought the game looked amazing, better than I could have hoped for. So yeah, I was just so happy. And plus it felt like gaming was like reinvigorated for me personally. Like, even though I love gaming and I've had a great time the last few years, like that really like positive, like happy-go-lucky feeling like I had when I was a kid, I haven't had that in a long time. So like seeing that game just made me feel so happy. So like I was just on cloud 9.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and I can say, knowing you pretty well, Dave, I watched your reaction too, and I felt exactly the way you said it. You did have a big reaction for Dave. I could tell that it was hitting you really hard, and you were just as surprised as all of us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For sure.
It was great.
Yeah, I watched all your reactions. I was like, all right, let's see what the boys thought.
I feel like
that's
out of
kind of the
all
fun
of our
part.
reactions, yeah, that is the fun part of everything, right, Rob? But I was just thinking, Andres, I think you had the best reaction out of all of us. I could tell
I lost
you
a little
woke.
voice.
If you had neighbors, you woke them up if they were still sleeping. Let's be real.
Hey, the whole neighborhood needs to know, man.
Yeah. They do, Rob.
There's a little bit of a history with me in reactions. Like, it's not always, right? Like, I would say my react for everything else was like, oh, that's cool. Oh, Mario and Luigi, that's a big deal. Oh man, 2D Zelda, we predicted this. That's exciting. Metroid Prime 4, that was like oh my god, it's finally happening. I can't believe this. This is a massive, like it's a combination of feelings. It's like excited this is happening. It's like proof to like kind of like the belief we've had in this game, and like the kind of quality it's going to be that they're using it as a closer. A direct that has something like Mario and Luigi, the biggest Mario Party ever, and a new Zelda game. They chose Prime 4 to be the closer.
Yeah.
So
Such a great point.
So many things about this that just it to me it showed that Nintendo believes in this game. And what I saw was the quality I was anticipating. And essentially, like, this is what we want. Like, that's what I saw in the trailer. So I was just so thrilled. But yeah, there is a history of, like, when there's those choice moments, like when Tears of the Kingdom was shown off for the first time. Like, when we get games like that, people think there's something wrong. My neighbors are concerned.
We're passionate. If you're a game fan like we all are, you're passionate. You see something you're waiting for, you didn't even expect, and sometimes you just have that outburst. And also, I think, and I can even I can go next if this helps too in adding to this, but Metroid Prime 4 represents, I think, such a release for like all of the four of us and all the Metroid fans and just like the wider gaming community and Nintendo community, because the reveal and silence surrounding the whole situation is, at least for Nintendo, unprecedented. I made a comparison, and I think it was in my first Breakdown video, how it kind of falls in the territory of what happened with The Last Guardian on the PlayStation years ago. The way that was announced and then disappeared for a decade and went mysterious. But those situations are few and far between, and that's what this was for Metroid. And so that kind of explosion I think you're talking about, Andres, that's the difference, I think, with Metroid Prime 4, because they announced it, and unlike Nintendo fashion, they A, went silent, and B, updated us to tell us why they were silent in 2019. I mean, they've never done that. So all of us who've been waiting for this game were like really put through the emotional ringer, so to speak, right? To be like, wow, we have to wait that much longer? It was so bad they restarted. It was so bad they told us they restarted it. Like they're notoriously very secretive, right? So they broke convention with this game in a lot of ways. And so I know for me, just kind of adding on to that, I've mentioned it in my couple of videos I've made. I know we're all feeling this, like on the other side of this 7 years and on the other side of like, it was a teaser, but they didn't do like a tease, like here's Samus and then we'll show you more later. It was like 60, 90 seconds of actual gameplay. Mm-hmm. So they really showed us the game. They showed us Samus. They gave us a massive reveal with Psylocke, all these things we're going to get into in this conversation. They gave us both a little to wet our beaks, but a lot to get excited for. And so to be on the other side of that, I still think it's surreal personally. And for me, when I was watching it for the first time, kind of like you were talking about, Dave, when I first saw, so I said it's in my reaction video too, because I have this habit of like overanalyzing the presenter's faces. And so he's like, I was like, man, I'm like, am I looking at a smirk that tells me the thing I want is actually going to be here? But I also didn't believe it because I was like, there's no way we're that lucky. And so when Cosmic Year 20X9 came up for me, I was like, it was like a slow shock. Like I knew Cosmic Year, but I was like, that's not how they're going to do Metroid. They wouldn't start this way. It's going to be something else. And I don't know. It didn't sink in that they would actually be doing Metroid that way. But then by the time you see Galactic Federation, it's game over. You know exactly what's happening. I was in a weird position where it was really early in the morning. I think we're all Andres, you're on the East Coast. The rest of us are on the West Coast. Yeah. So 7 a.m, I have to start working at 8. I work in this chair with my computer here. So I had to start working. I had an hour. And my wife, who's a teacher, is normally already at work. But just this day, by chance, she didn't need to be to work till 9. So she was asleep. And our bedroom is right on the outside of my door right here. So I was like, I tried to not scream a whole lot. And I also tried to, and I tried and I failed in a lot of the other times I recorded my Metroid reactions too. I almost like cover myself to try to prevent me from screaming because I also want to hear the game. I'm trying to soak in like whatever they're showing me.
True.
And with Metroid, yeah, it's part of the reason I do that. And I was also trying to be like aware, like, oh my God, my wife is sleeping. I can't believe they're showing me this game. But I was so in shock. And then they go right into gameplay. I did not expect them to spin around Samus. I thought it was going to cut into like, I don't know what they were going to cut into. But nope, we went boom, right in. For all we know, that's the first thing you play in the game. For all we know, could be. And so once they went into gameplay, I was like, this is insane. And so I don't want to jump ahead because we have all these topics. And obviously I want to give Joey your chance. But yeah, it was remarkable. And then by the time they're wrapping up, and God, it was so short. Do you guys feel like it felt too short in the moment? It went by so quick.
I heard in your reaction, you were literally saying in your reaction, slow down.
You're too fast, dude. Because within 20 seconds, she's scanning something. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like trying to soak this in and not wake up my wife. Like, chill, bro.
Yeah, right after the trailer was over, I went back and watched it again multiple times on the on my live stream. So yeah, it was pretty short, Dave, but there's a lot there.
Yeah.
And I saw, Dave, that your reaction video was like 15 minutes. And I was like, and I couldn't record my follow-up breakdown till the following day because, again, I had to work the whole day. So, but I did want to see your reaction, so I watched just your reaction, and then I stopped because I didn't want to see anyone else's breakdowns in theory until I made my own. So
it's all good.
But
I do that
noticed
a lot
that you
with, especially like with Zelda stuff, right? Like I love other Zelda YouTubers, but until I've made my own theory on it, I don't watch any of them.
I think it's smart to do. It can help you sometimes, like maybe think of things you didn't think of and then go deeper. But it can also inadvertently inform you in different ways, and so I'm with you, Andres. That's why I chose to wait.
Yeah,
until
I did mine right away because I had to leave and work for the rest of the day, and I was like, I'm not gonna have time to make a reaction video or an analysis video, so I just might as well do it right now. Then I had time to go back and do another video after that, so that was good.
Yeah,
that was good.
Yeah, but then we start watching each other and we start seeing what we've all discovered, and then so the puzzle pieces start coming together. Like, that makes sense. But then you have other realizations, so it's kind of like this compounding effect that happens over time. So I don't know. I just feel like we're gonna be dissecting this for a while.
Yeah,
exactly.
I had some discussions before this one, and one of my friends, Doughboy, said that one of his viewers found like something in like the trailer, like he was reacting to, and I'm just like, oh, now I got to put that in my analysis. Now I got to put this in my analysis.
Yeah.
So it's just like I still credited them for findings I wouldn't have found otherwise. But yeah, it's still, I'm glad that happened because it made me think of things that I couldn't have thought of before. But how I was feeling,
I never realized the mock droid thing.
Me either. I would have never realized that if nobody told me.
Yeah.
So goes to show we're fake Metroid fans, Andres. I'm sorry.
No. I forgot that part of Super Metroid.
I got a comment that goes in that direction on my video. But I'll let you go, Joey, and then I'll share because it was really stupid. So
okay.
Anyway,
so the day, but we already knew a June Direct was going to happen. We didn't know when exactly, but I was already feeling so down before this Direct. Like, the day it was announced, I was like actually in kind of just a funk that entire day because I just knew that Prime 4 was not going to be here.
Especially after what Pioro said. Which
Pioro said, which Pioro's now cooked, but Pioro said, like, keep your expectations in check. And I was just all like, this is just going to be a mid-direct, and I'm going to have to wait until the Switch 2 is announced to see this game I've been waiting the entire Switch life for. And my wife noticed it, and we went to bed that night, and she told me, hey, tomorrow's going to be a good day. And how right she was.
Wow.
Like when the one more thing happened, I didn't pay any attention to Shinya Takahashi's face during it. But I knew like whatever this was going to disappoint me yet again. Because I'm always expecting one more thing. Please be the one more thing. Please be one more thing. And without fail, something comes up that's obviously not Metroid, and I'm just like, Yeah. But then the text happened, and I was just like, hold on. I didn't even let out a sound yet, because I'm just like, okay, you're messing with me. This can't be really happening. Like, it wasn't enough that it said 20x9. It wasn't enough that it said Galactic Federation, because I was still like, no, don't do this to me. Don't do this to me. And then when I saw Samus and the ship, just completely let loose. I was just like screaming to the top of my lungs, thank you, my God. And then I actually caught myself like the first 20 seconds, and I'm like, okay, I need to stop screaming and actually watch this. So then I just watched it, and everything was just, I was on cloud 9, man. I was on cloud Prime 4. Like, it finally happened. It's here. It's got a release year of 2025, which I expected at that point, because not only because just like I'm expecting to just wait a little longer than the rest of these games, but during the Nintendo Direct, they announced a lot of 2024 games, and I'm like, okay, there's no way they're going to fit Prime 4 in here, which is fine, right? But I was just so happy. It was a relief, and Andre and Tris were with me, and Andre's like, we can finally move on from this, Joey. We can finally move on. You finally got your gameplay. Please stop messaging me at midnight saying how sad you are about this game. So yeah, just great feelings all around. And later that day, my wife is all telling me, you look so happy today. You look perked up, more perky than usual. And I'm like, babe, this game that was announced a year after we started dating is finally here. So yeah, it's crazy.
It's your second child.
Pretty much, yeah. It's insane.
Yeah, I think Rob and I have been like your personal counselors for this game.
For
the
real.
Past
pretty
5
much
5 years, 6 years, whatever. Yeah.
Exactly.
Joey's been struggling. I think we're all owed some kind of like therapist fee, maybe along with Andre for trying to console Joey, talk him off the cliff.
Send me your Venmo when we're done here.
It's gonna be okay, Joey. They're gonna show the game eventually. But when?
But when? Dang it.
Hey, how'd you
When?
feel about all those people that are saying, nah, man, Prime 4 is canceled?
Oh, I'm so
Dude.
glad they can
I
shut
never
up.
thought it was.
There was no way. There was no way. Nintendo would have told us if that were to happen, but they wouldn't have canceled it because they restarted the game anyway. They're not going to cancel it the second time.
Proof, not just evidence, proof that it wasn't. But you know how people are.
Every single year on their financials, they would list the game as TBA. So it was never canceled.
Exactly.
And they were doing hiring. I mean, I know, Dave, you and I have made a lot of videos over the years about when folks who worked on Tomb Raider or Crysis and whatnot kept joining the team. Call of Duty, you know, that almost feels like ancient news. But we saw a lot of, like you said, Andres, proof. But those people maintained. In my video right before the Nintendo Direct, people were like, "Oh, but this game's canceled." And they just kept believing it, but they're quiet now.
And they just showed the game, and they're still hiring new people on Retro Studios. So it's not going to stop just after they show the game. So
right.
Well, the goalposts have moved now. Now the conversation is, oh, there's no way this is a Switch game.
Which is still so stupid because it has the Switch logo in the trailer.
Proof, a lot of it, but it's not enough.
We definitely know it is.
Yeah. And for the record, that's not us saying we don't think there could be a Switch 2 version. We'll get to that. But this version is 100% a Switch version that we saw.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Correct. It's in the Nintendo Direct that they told us last month was going to feature only Switch games.
Yes.
Like, the end. No one has any leg to stand on, in my opinion, after that. Like, that's all we need to know. And we've had this discussion, you know, when I say we, I mean, I think all of us, like the larger Metroid community, about the fact that I personally think it looks like, and I don't mean this in any negative way, it looks like a Switch game. It just looks like the best looking Switch game. There's no doubt this is pushing the console to its max, but it looks like a Switch game. I can picture the Switch 2 version in my mind's eye of like, how could this look even better? At probably not 4K. What do they go up to? Like 2960 or whatever that in between 1080?
1440p.
Whatever. They can do that, you know, zero aliasing and just I can picture that version in my brain. But this this looks phenomenally gorgeous. It holds toe to toe with I think a lot of PS5 and Xbox games, but it still also looks to me like, I can comfortably say it's a Switch game. It's just the best looking Switch game.
Compare it to Halo games, right? Like, I think that kind of tells you, like, like artistically, I think Prime 4 holds up, but when you start looking at it in a technical perspective, like, it doesn't hold up compared to games made for more powerful hardware because it was not made for more powerful hardware, not this version at least.
Yeah.
But it's still mind-blowing, right? Like Prime Remastered, it's interesting, right? Like I actually put out I worked with Brandon. He's like my co-host on my podcast. We worked together this weekend on a graphics comparison and analysis, kind of like a deep dive. And you know, I noticed more things during this kind of analysis that I didn't after watching the trailer like 50 times. But like, it is evident that Prime Remastered was a building block for Prime 4, but also really not to too much of a surprise because I did expect this. They pushed past it, right? Like Prime Remastered is a remaster. It wasn't a game ground up made for the Switch. Prime 4 is, but building off of that root engine that ran Prime Remastered, and we see an even more impressive version of this engine. It looks really good.
I think,
if there's a Switch 2 version, sorry to cut you off. Just a quick
no,
thing.
you go up.
If there is a Switch 2 version, which I think there is, we'll get to that later. If you don't buy Switch 2, I don't think you're gonna feel disappointed because what they're doing with the Switch 1 version looks more than satisfactory.
Yeah, I said this before with Metroid Prime Remastered. It has the best for the frame rate and the graphics quality. It has the best image quality. All those things, like even though it's not 1080p, it's not 900p, it's not good enough. It's like for the quality you're getting with Metroid Prime Remastered, it's hands down the best looking Switch game. Like easy.
We're already in the visual section, so I'm just putting that there.
So of course.
Fair.
Yeah, so of course Metroid Prime 4 automatically the best looking game, and they're doing some kind of they're doing some nips and tucks here and there with the Switch. Obviously, like you can tell when you see the ground. Anytime you want to see if it's a Switch game, just look at the ground. You'll see some like the little distant lack of detail. That's just what the Switch does, like bilinear or like texture filtering. You can it's one of the oldest like techniques for texture filtering. The Switch has that, so it's like you can tell right off the bat. Plus, there's lack of real time shadows in some of the objects. there's some things that they've muted, but it's all the same kind of stuff they use in Metroid Prime Remastered. So there's no like real reflections. There's a lot less of real-time lighting, but it doesn't look bad by any means. It looks great because they're targeting the art style. It kind of like makes up for any kind of lack of technical prowess there. But they have lots of flares, like lens flares and motion blur, and like the particle effects look great. So it all looks beautiful for what they're targeting. But I can definitely see a Switch 2 version adding in like real-time reflections, maybe like if they have some kind of ray trace reflections here and there, maybe, or at least screen space reflections and better texture filtering, 1440p, 60 frames, that kind of stuff. I think they can make it look dramatically better on a Switch 2 just because of the lighting and reflections. That makes a huge difference for like PS5 games, for example, versus Switch.
I think
Shadows
the lighting
too.
Shadows.
Rob,
sure.
go, because I cut you off earlier. I feel bad.
Oh, it's fine. It's fine. We're all just blab. This is the world of talking to people online. But I think the point you made about lighting, Dave, I totally agree with, because it's the real-time lighting, I should say, because it's the one thing I noticed in Prime Remastered they took away was like, especially around your beam, like if you're using your wave beam or your standard power beam, you could see the light travel with that, but that's not there in Prime Remastered. I don't know what you would call it, the environmental lighting and all that is like better than we've almost ever seen. But stuff that moves real time with the environment or stuff in the game, that's not present. And I think that larger, talking about the graphics and the few people that are kind of naysaying it, they're either saying it doesn't look as good as they want, or they think it looks too good to be on the Switch. It's like people are on both sides of the camp. Yeah. It's almost easy, I think, and I've caught myself doing this too. It's almost easy to forget that in reality, we have barely seen anything from this game. That thing is 2 minutes. 30 seconds of it is the last beautiful shot of the forest and whatever's going on there, which we obviously have to talk about. But the gameplay is one area of one section on one planet. I think we're probably on one planet because I think that's always been the plan, but we don't truly know. We might visit multiple planets. But we saw whatever that is, 80, 90 seconds of like gameplay, Samus running, shooting, fighting space pirates, morph balling. And even those, they cut. They keep cutting and jumping into another section. We've seen really one environment of this game and a very straightforward linear corridor path just for her to come face to face with Psylocke, and gameplay ends. And so it's way too early, especially for the people complaining or whatever they're saying about it, to even have too much of an opinion on that, because we've only seen one environment, and it's beautiful, but it's dark, and it's dirt, and it's a mountain, kind of crags, and then you're going into like a mechanical like base, you're inside, and that's all we see. So there is months and months and months, maybe a year, hopefully not, but we have months to learn and see a lot more about the variety of are we going to see a snowy planet? Are we going to go to some location? Are we going to go to a different kind of environment we've never seen before? I don't know. We've been all over in all of the Prime series or all the Metroid series, but we have to see how they're going to show us different environments in Prime 4 specifically.
Yeah, you know what I really think makes this, is the dead giveaway of this being a Switch 1 game? It's the final shot where we see off in the distance this great big tree and a bridge, and those are all like still images and not like actual 3D graphics. And I don't remember the last time I've seen a game do that in its background, at least to an obvious extent. But I kind of love that because it makes me feel like, hey, mid-2000s we're back, baby.
That's a Telltale Retro Studios trick. They did that Metroid Prime 1 and 2 and 3. Yeah, those backdrops.
Very cool.
I don't mind those. I think you're right, Joey. I don't mind those because the way we've seen Retro, to your point, Dave, take advantage of that is as we travel, as we maybe pass through a door or as we get closer to those locations, whatever those backgrounds are showing us from a distance, it's not a Breath of the Wild map. So I think that's the point you're making. Where when you see Death Mountain way off, you can just go, it's the exact same Death Mountain that exists in that world. That's probably not what they're doing here. But that's kind of never been Metroid Prime's way or Retro's way. So as long as we can get to those areas and they become what they become, which I know will be the case, that's fine. I think they only showed it to us to let us know this is the scale of the game and of the areas you're going to go to. And like you said, there is how do I say this? Because people could almost find this as like a negative, but it does kind of evoke that classic game design style. You know, people might say, "Oh, you're turning like a lack of power into a positive," and it's not really that. But it does evoke that classic gaming, and I like that part to it. I agree with you.
But it goes back to the fact that it needs to be still a Metroid Prime game.
Yeah.
So like, it's not going to be this full open world game. We never expected that in the first place. Larger open areas, sure. Yeah. We haven't seen anything yet to know.
We really still don't know.
Yeah, because that forest area it was nice looking, but it's not really like huge open. It's kind of like it's kind of blocked off.
It's a pretty small room, I think. Yeah, and that's totally like that's the shot they're gonna play when Samus enters it the first time. Like they always do the overhead shots, and then let's say the name of the area, and then then it cuts to gameplay. Yeah, that just seems like the entrance room. You can already tell like that tree trunk in the distance. That's like where the next door to the next room's gonna be. And yeah, that's part of the reason why like this game looks so good is because really Retro Studios, even if like these rooms are bigger than in previous Prime games, it's just like all the Switch has to process is what you're looking at and making these rooms contained. Yeah.
Yeah. It reminds me of God of War Ragnarok because like you have lots of enclosed areas. It looks huge, but they're very, very much enclosed, and the backgrounds are being blocked off by structures or mountains or trees. So it has the feeling of a very huge game, God of War, but it's actually it's always in little sections that you're playing in. And that's exactly I think what they're doing with Metroid Prime 4, which is great. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as long as we're talking about, like I think that would be fine. If the level layout is intricate, right? Like if we have interwoven paths and there's different, like they're linked in different ways, we're still gonna have the sense of, oh, this is like a real place we're exploring. Like we're gonna feel that, but done in this intellectual way that allows it to focus on the visuals up close, and you can hide everything else because you're just really doing one area at a time.
Yeah, because we talked about this before, Andres, on the last podcast I was on with Nintendo Prime. Remember that? We talked about how Metroid Prime 1 almost feels like an open world game when you connect everything together at the very end. Even though you have doors separating the areas, it's very much one singular world that you're exploring. It all feels connected. It all feels like one big open world, even though you're sectioned off by doors. And I think that's what you're doing here. That's what a Metroid Prime game is. That's what a Metroid game is. So yeah, it's not going to be just completely open paths everywhere and nothing's blocked off. No, that's not what Metroid is. So I think this is how you handle it.
I think to your guys' point, it's some people maybe wanting or expecting in the era of big open worlds, and because Nintendo did it with Zelda 2, kind of expecting them to do the same. I mean, for 5-6 years we've been hearing people say, "Oh, Metroid Prime 4 could get the Breath of the Wild treatment. It's gonna get that," and that was always, I guess, a possibility. And I certainly would have been open to that and excited about it. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of people asking for that just don't understand what Prime is. And like you guys are saying, Prime really is based on those kind of what essentially act as like rooms. And you go from section to section, and it allows them to maximize, just like you said, what you're actually seeing. The God of War effect, like you said, Dave, only made smaller scale. But I think they can still achieve a huge scale.
Right.
And Metroid Prime, that series of game is built on that. And it goes to a larger point that I've talked about for years and have been talking about since, where Metroid Prime 4 always had to be, I think the reason I never thought it was going to get this Breath of the Wild treatment, whatever that meant, open world or just a huge shift for the concept of Metroid or whatever, I really struggled to believe that, because I was like, guys, this game is called Metroid Prime 4. So it's already has the obligation, in a good way, and this is not a negative thing, it has an obligation to feel in line with the 3 games that precede it. It can't. Breath of the Wild didn't have that obligation. It's its own brand new random Zelda thing. So it did what it did, and that's why it's different. Prime 4 was never going to change. It was never going to be third person. It was never going to be open world. Well, probably was never going to be open world, and I think we're seeing evidence it probably
not going to be third person. Like they could have they could have an alternative viewing mode.
Like Elder Scrolls.
I'm not saying I think that. I'm just saying you never that really would be weird. Know, right?
Yeah. I will say, though, to your point, though, Andres, I would be open to, and I've theorized about this in the past, I kind of would like them to, I can't remember if I'm jumping ahead to what you have on your kind of plans there.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Just speak your mind.
as far as gameplay, like, I think one of the ways they could evolve the Prime gameplay in Prime 4 would be to add, in a very clever way, an organic way, a third-person kind of section where for whatever reason, the same way you can go third person by going into your morph ball, that's third person, we sometimes forget. What if there's some way, and I have no idea what it could be, so I don't have examples, where there might be specific sections, or you enter a device in a certain way, or you're solving a puzzle in a certain way where she has to be in a somewhat restricted way in a third person, and it will temporarily but minorly change the gameplay for something. But it's going to feel like a step forward. Like, I'm not talking Other M where you're fully just always looking at Samus running around. It would be very restricted to how they choose to do it. I think they could do something like that, and that would be really exciting.
Yeah. But I'll say this, right? The ideas crossed my mind before. If you want to maintain the immersion, because Metroid, especially Metroid Prime, it is a lot about immersion. First person is a big piece to that, right? So if you do have like a third person mode, maybe something to the effect of what you're speaking about, like something they can do that would fit the immersion is maybe Samus has an ability where out of her shoulder pads, two like little like drone like cameras fly out, and they project the environment to her in third person, so she can then perceive it as if, it's just basically an explanation for why it's in third person. She just has these little camera drones following her, and you just see this animation that was shooting out, and then it goes from, goes into third person. So they could do something like that and still maintain immersion.
Well, that makes you think about what kind of new upgrades. I mean, you think about all these things we don't know. We're all trying to fill in. It's way too early for all of us to be filling in the gaps. We've only seen the one location, like I said. We don't know what kind of new beams there are going to be. We don't know if there's going to be different kinds of missiles, new upgrades and things we've probably never seen before. I'm sure one of them will be a morph ball ability we've never seen before. So all of those things we have zero hints about from this 90 seconds of gameplay footage, So this is only the first of many kinds of conversations we get to have about this over the next 6 months, probably. And so that drone idea you mentioned, Andres, that's a good example of what if that's an upgrade that allows you to do something like that. That's new to Metroid and to Metroid Prime, but that'll change the gameplay and evolve.
I just imagined a spider ball, but it gives Samus's morph ball 8 legs, and then
like a real spider.
Oh my God.
Yes, that just popped into my brain hole.
People would be terrified, but it would definitely be like a talking point online, and there's some cool things you could do with that. Like imagine, like you just start like piercing bugs. Like if you have a horde of bugs, you go into spider ball mode, and you just slay them all with your spider legs,
like Spider-Man's little Iron Man outfit or something.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
That's an underrated, pretty darned good idea that I can almost see them doing. And even if it's not the spider concept, what if beyond just turning into a ball in Morph Ball, you can turn into something different that you can actually control and have some sort of offensive capabilities, or she crawls around, or I mean, I guess we got to be careful because I'm starting to remember, and I like this game, but I'm starting to remember in Star Fox Zero where you can turn into the chicken walker thing.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if they start to change the morph ball gameplay with an extra upgrade for the morph ball where you can control it in a different way than rolling around. So,
Oh, they might also do like the speed booster might make a first appearance. You never know. And how would they handle that? Maybe you would wall jump with Samus with a speed booster, and then you would see her running along the wall in third person to the next area. To across like a bridge or something like that. That's how they could do it in third person. You would see a brief moment of her doing that, and then back in first person.
That is a great point.
No, you go, Rob. What? You go.
Oh, well, I was going to say, that's a great point. It's kind of like the screw attack. We can't forget the screw attack is something that they've given us third person. But I know some people, Joey especially here, won't want to hear this, but I think the way they handled the speed booster in Metroid Other M is pretty darn cool. And I
love it.
When you mention that, Dave, that's kind of how I picture them doing a third-person speed booster kind of visually, and allowing her to jump forward. And that whole thing happens in third person, obviously, in Other M.
I feel like they got to make that a dedicated button at that point, though, because Other M, I feel like it made the speed booster, because I feel like Other M, it made sense to just keep going forward and then, boost, because that game was restricted to the Wii remote's D-pad, and then but
and the camera too.
Yeah, and there's a lot more buttons on the Switch controllers than there are on like those. This is like the first Metroid game made for a real controller, like if that makes sense.
For
Like
a proper modern day controller. That is actually a really interesting point.
Because I don't know what the scan visor, how to activate the scan visor in this game.
Click
what
a
button
stick.
do I press? Yeah, click the stick. I'm
Makes
thinking.
sense.
Yeah, the main thing I don't want them to do is force in third person stuff if it's cumbersome. Like if it doesn't make sense to do it, don't force it in. It has to be natural. It has to make sense.
Yeah, like I would be okay with taking a something from Other M where they throw in some more grappling moments, and in those grappling or melee attack moments we see more opportunities. We have more opportunities to see Samus in third person where she's grabbing a space pirate by like the face and slamming to the ground. I mean, it's a little bit of a Doom energy as well.
You want
right?
the Doom version, yeah. I was gonna.
Yeah, I mean, I think they could do something like that. Maybe not as gritty, right, where we're splitting their skull in half, but they could probably do something like that.
Look, I've said for a long time to that exact same point, Andres, I wanted to see, and it is one of the reasons I've always defended the game people hate, Other M, is because this game did this. I wanted to see how tough Samus can be in a melee, face-to-face, fist-to-fist situation, like with melee combat. And so in first person, it is trickier to do, but you make a great point, Andres. Doom found a way to do it for that franchise. Should they copy Doom? Definitely not. But I think that we've seen evidence that in a first person way, even if it's first person and that goes to third person and then into first, I don't know, something that shows Samus isn't just deadly from a distance with her missiles and her arm cannon. If something gets up on her, I'd like to have some defense, do this, whatever that looks like. Something. She is a badass, and I'd like to see them create gameplay in a first-person Prime game that can somehow do that, and in a way that's still fun, and like you said, Dave, that wouldn't like ruin it or slow it down or make it cumbersome. And I think if Retro had that plan, they're good enough developers to make it work. So I hope that becomes part of the game.
Yeah, maybe they can make her grapple beam turn into have different shapes, different forms. Maybe that turn into like a light blade. That she uses to slice people.
Oh, so what's it called? A Halo laser sword or something?
Oh,
kinda.
Sure.
Or maybe have the grapple beam turn into a whip or something. Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, they already did a little bit of that in Prime 3, right? Like, so like expanding on it more so. I mean, I think there's precedent for that already. Like,
well,
I think
there's
it's
potential.
pretty believable. Yeah.
Actually, when you were talking, Andres, about that idea of her grabbing space pirates, the first thing I thought of was Prime 3 when she uses the beam to pull like shields off of space pirates from a distance. What if she can do that and then pull the space pirate and grab them with her good arm and then just like boom,
just shoves the cannon in their mouth.
Oh man,
and boom! Oh, that'd be so cool.
Let's go. She's done that. She does that literally in Other M when she does the wrestling move takedown and she gets right on. She lifts a mouth open and she pops it from like point blank range.
She has a history. I'm thinking about it now. She does it to Ridley too. Like she likes blasting people in the mouth.
She does. It's just like effective. That's not out of character at all, really, because Dread enhanced that too. Like she was a beast in Dread. She moved so fluidly, and she did all that stuff she did in Other M, and just
she had a parry.
She had a parry. So that's why I'm quite surprised we didn't see any form of melee in the trailer. Like I know they'd probably
early.
if it is, that's what I'm thinking too. If it is in this game, which I wouldn't really be that disappointed if it wasn't, because it's Metroid Prime 4 anyway.
Sure.
But yeah, maybe they were very purposeful about showing this game in this trailer looking very familiar, because to me this very much like I it's weird saying this out loud, but it makes sense. This looks like a Metroid Prime game. Like this could have come out in like 2012 maybe. Like maybe not look as good, but still like this looks like a continuation of a Prime game, which is something we haven't seen since 2007. Like she moves the same, she shoots the same, it's all like the same, the scan visor's the same, and the morph ball is exactly the same, only she morphs into it way faster, which is cool. But what really gets me is the end shot with the locale, the new area, and the music. The music. We need to talk about this music, y'all. This very much sounds like a cut track from like Metroid Prime 1 or 2 or 3 or something.
For me, it sounds like Metroid.
What were you saying, Dave?
Sorry, it sounds like Metroid Prime 3 to me.
Yes.
It sounds much more like that game to me personally. Less, but that's just like one little track we heard. But like, Metroid Prime 1 and 2 have like seemingly a little bit more darker stuff but we need to hear of course the entire game, but from what they played, it sounded like something that came from Metroid Prime 3 to me.
Yes.
Which is fine. It's good.
It does, because those soundtracks are goated. Let's be real. They're
totally.
they have some of the best music I've heard in any video game. The jury's still out on who's composing this game, but it very much sounds like Kenji Yamamoto, who composed the original Prime trilogy. Either it is him or it's somebody who like perfectly mimicked his style, because my god, it just sounds so incredible with the vocals, which are probably synthetic vocals, but just the sci-fi like theme of it all. It's just great. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I've been using the word iconic. Like, I think this very short trailer did a great, to your point, this is my expectation going in. I thought what they need to do, even though I expect some significant evolutions, and we'll get to that in a bit. I thought what they need to do with this first trailer, not show too much, but show just enough so we know that this is a proper follow-up for the Metroid Prime series. And I do feel the music is evoking kind of like those iconic levels. Like, I do feel that. And there's variety there, right? So the ending track, which I love, I love everything about it, right? But even like the beginning, as you mentioned, like the fanfare, like it's a newer version of it. And I love it. I love seeing Samus come out. You see her standing. She's like, typing into her arm can. You hear that music. Like it's Metroid, but it's Metroid today of 2025, 2024, what have you. And it's just awesome. And then also there's all the space pirate music, and then when Silas comes in, you hear the guitar. There's a lot of variety.
That little guitar doodle, man. Oh, that is so metal.
And it's subtle too, right? It's not in your face. It's like there's just like a lot of attention to detail here. And yeah, I have, at least from a music perspective, they have shown to me that I should be expecting, like this game better be in the nominations for like best like orchestra or what have you next year.
We only heard like 16 seconds of it.
I
already believe it. I already believe it though.
Yeah, exactly. Because like I feel like Metroid music lately has been kind of disappointing. Like Dread soundtrack, I think.
A little bit.
The Dread soundtrack, it was good, but not on the same level of what I expect.
There's like two tracks I really like. Everything else is just kind of like, okay, this is just tone.
Generic. It's generic sci-fi, and so like that was one of my concerns going into Prime 4. But those 16 seconds quelled all my fears. Like seriously,
I think regardless of who is composing it, because you make a great point with that, Joey. But the fact that we know Tanabe's behind this game is probably all we need to know. So whether he brings that composer back or not, he's probably still overseeing that general tone and vibe that the game has to have. And to that point, and in my couple of videos I've already kind of made about this game, I have seen such a direct connection. Tell me if you guys agree with this or not, because obviously it feels like the 2025 version of the first 3 Metroid Prime games, but I see way more of a direct organic connection to Prime 3 than even Primes 1 and 2.
Yes.
Yep.
I agree.
Doesn't it just kind of feel that way? I mean, even though they're all similar, there's a lot of things, and in my first breakdown video, I point out a lot of stuff that just evokes that Metroid Prime vibe. The pods that the space pirates land in, that was first introduced in Metroid Prime 3. Something I've brought up 100 times is the fact that planet battle reminds me of Norian in the beginning of Metroid Prime 3. And I just don't think that is Planet Norian, but it just feels that way. It feels like they were inspired to continue those kinds of themes and those concepts that Prime 3 introduced, because Prime 3 took a lot of ideas and went bigger with them because the Wii was more powerful than the GameCube. Whatever that is, 2 GameCubes taped together, I don't freaking know. It's a little bit better than a GameCube, right?
Yeah.
So I've always viewed Prime 3 as a game that is smaller than Primes 1 and 2. Like there's more planets, but I think there are less places to go in Prime 3. However, they increased the scope and the scale with things like those sky planet battles and being able to fly to different planets and call your ship to different places to land and things like that. Stuff Primes 1 and 2 didn't do. And so Prime 3 kind of started to go more cinematic. There was real voice acting. The other soldiers and the other hunters all had voices, And so I think Prime 4 to me feels like, yes, we're making the 4th in a trilogy, but it's also most directly a sequel to Prime 3. And the whole timeline thing. Holy smokes, that's going to be a big mess of a thing to talk about. Very exciting.
Yeah.
So, but
Yeah.
we take the
That
timeline
I want to keep
out
some
of it.
wraps on. Yeah, because I know once we dig up that one, we'll go
That's a
down
big
a
one.
big rabbit hole.
Yeah, I just made like a 25-minute video about it. Yeah, and we
Yeah,
still don't
yeah.
even know.
To me, yeah,
Say
to
again,
me,
sorry?
it seems like they're following Prime 3, starting the game off. It looks like the opening part of the game, starting the game off with a bang, lots of action. That's very much like Prime 3. Metroid Prime 1, there's a little bit of shoot some of the dead pirates on the frigate, but it's not really action focused. It's very much like atmospheric. Prime
Sure.
2, almost no like big action right away. You're exploring right off the bat. It's very like mysterious a little bit there. But yeah, in Prime 3, action right off the bat. So yeah, this seems like they're going with that in Prime 4, which is fine. And with all the people they've hired for this game, Call of Duty experience and all these first-person shooter experience, I do expect there to be an action focus. But obviously, it's still Metroid Prime, so we're going to have lots of exploration and lots of atmosphere to go as well. But yeah, they're going to get the game off to a bang, obviously, and then we'll go from there and see
Do you
how
guys-
we deep in.
Do you guys think to that point that let's pretend that's the very first thing that happens in the game? Like as soon as it gives you whatever thing, you land on that planet. Here's the
Sure.
planet you're on, and you start that battle. Do you think that the very opening 10 minutes is going to end with Psylux catching up to Samus, and then some kind of separate? Basically, my theory is that that's the first thing you do in the game. You play that for 5, 10, 15 minutes. You're going through that battle. Psylux catches up to you. And I'm guessing that whatever encounter with Psylux you have in that moment is going to be the thing that knocks Samus out or takes her power away. I guess you could say kind of similar to the Ravenbeak thing, right? That happened in Dread in a way. An initial encounter with the big foe, and then that resets whatever Samus is going to have to go through, and they'll get separated. Do you guys think that makes sense? Because it's kind of where I'm going.
100%.
Yeah,
100% agree. Yep.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah, I
trying
feel
not to
like-
dive fully into the story stuff.
Okay,
Because
sorry, that's my
we're
bad.
teetering the line. I mean, I don't want to limit you either. But I do think that is the beginning playable section.
I agree.
What I kind of feel, I do agree. I think it's kind of emulating Prime 3. And I think what they could do, to still kind of give us like that kind of creepy feeling to start. Like Prime 3, there will be an opening scene that we're gonna be like, whoa, what's like with Prime 3, it was Dark Samus, right? Like they had that creepy beginning. And it was the bombastic, like 2 different playable sections before we got into like the normal flow. I think we'll see something like that for Prime 4. There'll be like an opening cutscene that really sets like a creepy alien mood, have us asking questions, then we'll be briefed on the mission, and yeah, what we saw in the trailer.
I agree. That's
Sounds
going to be
good.
the opening.
Yeah. So I'm gonna take this chance because I we're like there's so many things we can do for like the story and stuff. Like I want to hold back on that for now because there's something I want to talk about before we do that because I know once we do it's all over.
Yes.
And that's circling back to the cross-gen section. We talked about visual upgrades and stuff, right? We kind of covered that part, but we didn't really focus too much on the cross-gen element. So before we saw Prime 4, I made a video, and I've been talking about this for a while, right? But it's like over time, it was like, okay, I'm 70% convinced, I'm 80% convinced, I'm 90% convinced. And before Prime 4 came out, before we got the trailer, before the Direct, I decided I was 100% convinced. And now after seeing everything in the Direct, I am now 125% convinced that Metroid Prime 4 is a cross-gen game. That's my perspective, right? But and when I say cross-gen, what I mean is, in some sense, I do think Nintendo's treating this somewhat like Breath of the Wild. Not exactly. Like, I don't think it's going to be open world. I don't think they expect it to sell 35 million copies. But I do think that they are going to position this game as a transition. It's going to help them with their transition. It's going to be a big Switch 1 closer, but also a big Switch 2 opener. Maybe not day one, but possibly, and still early on. It's going to be impressive for both consoles. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of, and I think it's going to evolve the series in certain ways while still maintaining the Metroid Prime formula. And yes, reach a higher level of sales. Does that, I doubt it means 35, right? But I mean, I hope, right? I hope it explodes in popularity, but obviously that's hard to predict, right? But I do think we're looking at a scenario, and I believe Nintendo is kind of like, we need to have this become a record seller because it has a huge budget behind it. So I'm convinced, but I'm kind of curious on what you guys think. Like, do you believe this game? That's one of the reasons why, right? Because the game's so expensive, I think they need to put it on 2 different systems. But what do you guys think? Do you think this game is 100% cross-gen, or do you think it's something a little bit different how they're going to handle it?
I will go last because I like being a contrarian.
Let's go.
Oh, that's funny because I was going to say I wanted to hear, Joey, yours first because
Fine, I'll say it first.
Right, because I know you disagree with us. That's why I really wanted your opinion on this.
Okay, here's the thing. It's definitely going to be cross-gen, but I don't think it's day one on both Switch 1 and Switch 2, if that makes sense. I don't think they're going to hold off until the Switch 2 comes out to release this game. Part of that is yes, I want to play it sooner, of course. I don't want to have to wait for a Switch 2, but also, I don't know, after seeing that trailer, I kind of feel like if they wanted this to be a big flagship Switch 2 launch title, they would have saved it for the Switch 2 reveal, which, you know, I could totally be wrong about that. I know Breath of the Wild was revealed before the Switch was announced and whatnot, but I just don't feel like you want a game that's already on the Switch to be like the big showcase for your Switch 2 powerhouse. I feel like the best case scenario for this game, or at least the ideal scenario, is you release it on Switch 1 first, and then when the Switch 2 gets revealed, released, what have you, then you start promoting the next gen features of Prime 4. Like, here's the ray tracing, here's the dynamic shadows, here's the higher resolution. And I think that's because, you know, we've seen that work on other consoles. It worked for games like Ghost of Tsushima. That game came out on PS4 like 3 or 4 months before PS5, and it's done really well. Released a definitive version on the PS5. So yeah, I kind of just feel like, also, the big one, I think, is if you release it day one on Switch 2 with the Switch version as well, people are going to be focused on the big 3D Mario game that's launching with the Switch 2. And I just feel like that would eat into the sales of Prime 4. And that's pretty... I have so many other reasonings I can think of, but I could just ramble on all day about that. That's essentially what I feel like is the crux of it. It's just like, why would you want a Switch 1, just a beefed up Switch 1 game to be a flagship Switch 2 launch title? And because also, hey, here's Super Mario Odyssey 2. And I don't want that game to be overshadowed by that.
I would assume that they wouldn't be on the same time. They would be staggered by.
You think so?
Yeah, like I know that there are rumors that 3D Mario would be the launch title, but also those same people who made reports were also wrong about the release date. So I just think timing is very tricky with this, right? So my point is that, like, yeah, maybe 3D Mario is a launch title. But so it's kind of like whatever they do, whatever they decide to do, they're going to space these games out in a way where they can be successful. So let's say 3D Mario is ready. Maybe that's a launch title. Maybe Prime 4 is going to be a holiday 2025 release. And at which point, like, you know, that's pretty late. I don't think we're expecting that, but, you know, it's not out of the cards, right? But point is, assuming Switch 2 comes out same March, right, which is what the latest reports have suggested, but of course could still be wrong. Right, 3D Mario comes out in March, and they're divided by 8 months. And I think at that point, you're not really ruining Metroid sales because there's been healthy spacing there, or vice versa. Maybe Metroid comes out early, and Mario is saved as the holiday title as we build up a larger install base. And maybe something like Mario Kart instead is an early Switch 2 title, not the same day as Metroid Prime 4. I still think you have to stagger it, but maybe like how they started Switch 1. It was Breath of the Wild, then 6 weeks later, it was Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. So I'm not sure exactly how they handle it. I just think that whatever they do, they would space them out in a way where each major game would have ample opportunity to succeed.
All right, can I go?
No.
What?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. I was going to say, I do think it's cross-gen, obviously. I thought that for years, but the trailer only made me think more so because they only gave a year of 2025. We know Switch 2 is coming out next year. So I do think it's cross-gen, and I think it was a smart move for them to show it on Switch 1 first because you have 150 million people who own the Switch 1. So they really need to make the Switch 1 version look great and reassure people it's coming to the Switch 1 to get as many sales as possible for the Switch 1, get people excited for it. And then when they do show the Switch 2 version, I don't think they will stagger release it. There's no reason to. You're still trying to build your install base for the Switch 2. You're going to have Mario, whatever. We don't know the release dates for these games, basically. So it's not going to be probably the same day as a Mario release. they'll have it released at a different time. But 2025 is all we know, so we can't know for sure if it's a launch game or not. It could be a couple months in, what have you. But either way, it's going to boost Switch 2 sales for people who are going to buy the Switch 2, which is a lot of people. And it's also going to have a great version for the Switch 1 for people who can't afford to buy a Switch 2 yet. So either way, it's going to be extremely positive for Metroid Prime 4 on whatever system you own, Switch 2 or Switch 1. And I don't think there's any reason to stagger the releases for it, for the versions of the games, because people are going to buy Switch 2 regardless, and they're going to keep their Switch 1 regardless if they can't afford Switch 2. So either way, we all win.
Yeah, I think we all just want the game to succeed. So.
Yeah, we definitely do, and I think we all know it will, because we've been waiting so long and it looks fantastic. I pretty much agree with Dave, you almost 100%. Obviously, I think that, Joey, what you mentioned is all very possible. I'm not 120% either way. Like, Andres, you're like 120% this is what's happening.
Yeah.
I'm not 100%, and I actually understand why. So I think a lot of your concepts, Joey, they definitely could happen that way for sure. But for me, there are two main things that tells me it's probably going to be cross-gen. It's definitely going to be coming out on the Switch 2. I think same-day launch on the Switch 2 is very likely as well. One of those two reasons we've already talked about, which is just the fact that we know it's coming out next year. Planned for next year. I really hope it's not going to slip. But so let's just go on the assumption.
Oh, man.
I know, man.
That
You know,
scares me.
I've rewatched it enough, and I'm like, maybe the way he said that makes me think they're not as far as we hope. But I don't think so. So my second point will help us with that. So I think two things. One, they told us next year. It just lines up with next gen too easily for this game to not be a Switch 2 title. The other is, as we've talked about, the fact that they showed us so little. I think part of the reason they showed us so little is they're like, just a taste of the Switch 1. Just here, it exists. Look at how good it looks on the Switch. But you get 90 seconds of gameplay at the end. And so I think that by the next time they show the game to us, they can show it for the Switch 2. And I think the first time we see a big blowout of gameplay and graphics and just all these different changes and really understand the game, I think will be because they've already shown us the Switch 2 or confirmed it to us. And we can see they can more focus on the definitive version of the game. But we've already seen the Switch version to know it looks great. It's going to be well worth the time. It's going to be worth your time to buy and play it on the Switch 1. But here's also our Switch 2 version. And whether that is a separate version you buy or whether that's an upgrade patch, you know, we all have thought about the different various ways they can go about it. I think that was my takeaway of the trailer. The year tells me it's Switch 2, and the short amount of stuff they showed us tells me it's probably also Switch 2. And so, yeah. And
plus,
Andres, you mentioned. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Dave.
I was going to say, logically, with them not giving a date, there's no date for Switch 2 either. So we know, like, if they show a Switch 2 version, and they're going to have a date probably at that point, and then they'll also probably have a date for Metroid Prime 4. So it makes sense there's no date in 2025. It kind of just makes sense to me that how they're going to show it now for next year. We don't know when Switch 2 is coming yet next year. It kind of lines up.
They're
Do you guys remember with Breath of the Wild, there was uncertainty about when it was coming out in 2017 as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so like we were hoping it was gonna be a holiday 2016 game, but you know we were like, oh well, it's coming for the NX, right? And then I remember in the January presentation, well, obviously by that point it was already for Switch, right? At the end of the trailer, it was like, all right, when's it coming out? When's it coming out? And I was praying it was the launch title, but we didn't know. We didn't know, right? And then they confirmed it was a launch title in January, and it came out like 7 weeks later or something like that, which is wild. Pun not intended. But I wouldn't be surprised, though, if we're kind of in a similar territory here. Like, we have like this nervous energy, this shakiness about Prime 4. Like, we're even concerned about maybe it doesn't actually make it in 2025 because they said planned. They didn't say for sure, right? It's not 100% certain. And so, I see a lot of parallels. But going back to Joey's point, though, right? I think it's important that the Switch version is really good, right? So, like, even if, if it's not, I really want a cross-gen version, right? Because I want to play Prime 4 in the best way possible. But, if Joey ends up being right, that's going to be a relatively easy pill to swallow. because what they showed for the Switch 1 version is that it looks amazing already, and I'm gonna be happy playing it on my Switch regardless. I might even buy both versions. Like, that's how impressive I think it looks.
Mhm.
If there's even a second version. That's
If
what I'm
there's even
wondering,
a second version.
Right, because they might just
that's
say,
true.
oh yeah, here's it is on Switch. It's beefed up on Switch 2. Go nuts. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel
Or
like they should do a deluxe version.
the $10 upgrade, like you mentioned, Ghost of Tsushima. That's what they did for that game, and for
The Last of Us.
Death Stranding, where you just pay $10, whatever, for the updated versions.
Yeah, we'll see.
But
all I know is if the Switch 2 comes out before Prime 4, I will be very sad. Like, if they do release it late, like, you know, if it's not a launch day title and it is like a few months after Switch 2, I am kind of going to be like, what the heck?
See, I don't think I understand that. I don't think I'd mind that, though. Because to me, it's
Good
just
luck
about
finding a Switch 2 then, Rob.
Well, so here's the thing. That's a great point, and that's obviously everyone's big fear, and that's why, you know, I was on the train of it's going to be a launch day game for the Switch 2, but also release on the Switch same day to make it easier for people to get. And I think that is still a very likely an option on the table, and I would be okay with that. But obviously, the huge advantage to releasing it many, many months after the Switch 2 would launch, theoretically, is that that's more time for people to be able to have purchased Switch 2s and buy that version of the game. Because I think that the reason for so long I've been one of the many of us who's thought that the cross-gen thing made sense is because, and Joey, you and I think actually talked about this ourselves on a video we did once, where I think that the Switch 1 is going to help sell copies of Metroid Prime 4, but I think the Switch 2 will also help sell copies of that game, and vice versa. I think that the Switch 2 really helps boost the overall hype and impact of Metroid Prime 4 because people just being excited to play any first-party Nintendo game on their brand spanking new Switch 2 means a lot of non-Metroid fans, they might even be the ones to skip the Switch version entirely, but when they say, oh, well, it's one of the premier Switch 2 titles in the first, let's say, 3 months of the Switch 2, people will be like, well, I'm going to buy that because I have a new Switch 2 and I want to see what Nintendo's cranking out. So I think that they cover every single possible option to sell people that game based on excitement if it's on both consoles, you know.
Yeah.
And that, again, that's if they do two versions. If they do the upgrade patch thing, I don't know how that would factor
different
into
then.
it. So.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Like, are they gonna, like, I always pictured like the Xbox box art that you absolutely love, Rob, where they list both the Xbox One and the Series X and stuff. So I wonder if they're gonna do that with the Switch too as well. Just like, here, it plays on both. I don't know.
I also think that you were bringing up Breath of the Wild, Andres. I feel like I feel like they might want to follow. You mentioned you saw parallels there, and I agree with you because I feel like, you know, Twilight Princess was where they staggered the release of a Zelda game. That was so long ago. They just did Breath of the Wild, just did that, you know, 7 years ago with their last new system, and they released it same day and date. And they saw incredible success, you know, over 1 million for the Wii U version. That was great for the install base of that console, so that's fine.
Especially
but look at how well
moved onto the Switch.
Yeah. Look at how well it did for Switch, releasing same day as not only the last gen Wii U version, but also same day as their new console. And for as hard as that console was to find, it sold 30 million copies. So I feel like
what happens when you release a 3D Mario game alongside Metroid Prime 4? You know,
true. So here's the thing: you're totally right. I'm kind of removing that option from my conversation, but you're right. I think Mario could also be a launch title. And putting Mario and Metroid against each other is not smart. So I'm assuming that they don't do that. They have to be separate. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing, right?
I think we're all gonna play 3D Mario as well, right? Like we're all 3D Mario fans.
Oh, yeah.
I hate Mario with a burning. I'm just kidding. I love 3D Mario, but
Liar.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like, because Breath of the Wild cross-gen pretty much out of necessity, right? Because the Wii U was an utter failure of a system. And I feel like with Switch 2, you gotta have something that's a little more enticing than just a beefed up Switch 1 game. Because we're coming off of a very successful console. And like, at the same time, there's gonna be a lot of people who need more convincing to buy a Switch 2 if their Switch 1 is just fine. And I don't think Metroid Prime is that game. Because it's just like, I can play this on my Switch 1 already. And Nintendo's going to put out something more enticing for the general consumer to say, hey, you can only play this on Switch 2, you know?
Hypothetical.
Yes.
All right.
Give it to me.
Let's say Switch 2 comes out in March. Launch game is not Metroid Prime 4. It's not even 3D Mario. It's a new Mario Kart. But in May, we get Metroid Prime 4. So it's staggered, still early on. Comes out for Switch and one for people who want to get Switch 2, you can play Metroid Prime 4 in May, which is not that far off, less than a year from
Not that
now.
far off. Yeah.
And 3D Mario, following the historical pattern, is the big holiday release.
I
That
can
could
deal
happen.
with that. Yeah, Metroid Prime 4.
And is
Oh,
Mario
man.
Kart a solid game that you're gonna be like, yeah, I need Switch 2 ASAP? For me, it would be.
Yeah, for millions of people.
Man,
Probably.
I have so many. I think that's a really good release cadence, and I think it makes sense. I'm trying to think. How do I say this? Because I can't undersell Mario Kart. You don't undersell Mario Kart. The game is massive. It's amazing. I would love a Mario Kart on my Switch 2 day one. But like, I think about a multiplayer racing game as the premier next gen launch title. I mean, it's Mario Kart, so it's gonna sell like crazy. So you know what I'm
Better
saying?
than
I'm trying.
Steel Diver.
Okay, let's not go into Steel Diver territory. Hashtag Steel Diver Gate. We can't do that.
Can't do that yet. Not yet.
Yeah, we can't do that yet. But I don't know if it makes sense what I'm even trying to get at, because I'm not saying I would be disappointed, but like, is your premier Nintendo launch title a multiplayer game, or should it be something like a single player adventure, Zelda, Metroid, Mario?
Oh,
So,
well,
I mean, I'm not saying it's
let me now
impossible.
twist it a little bit more. Let me
Okay.
add to the hypothetical.
Okay.
Let's say Monster Hunter Wilds comes out March. But it comes out day and date, or maybe there's a slight difference, right? But it comes out as a day one Switch title as well. So you have Monster Hunter Wilds, with a really good running version on Switch 2, and then Mario Kart. And Monster Hunter does appeal to a big part of the Nintendo fan base, right?
Yep.
Oh yeah.
And then you
I'll
still
be there.
Prime 4 6 to 7 weeks later, which is not that far off.
67 weeks?
I'm sorry. 6 to
I know.
7 weeks, if not maybe a little. And then there'll probably be like something else smaller in between, you know? Like, I don't know. I think that would work. But I understand your point. Like, do you really want to have a day one multiplayer focus and not a single player focus? But
Yeah, that's the only point I'm trying to make. It's
The
I
Switch
mean,
2
look,
is going to have a lot of third-party support, so I don't
Yes.
think it. Monster Hunter Wilds, it doesn't matter. I mean, yeah, whatever, but it's all about that big first-party game Nintendo has.
Yeah.
Either way, Nintendo's not going to release Metroid Prime 4 on the same day as a new Mario or a new Mario Kart. So either way,
I agree.
we're going to get it
Yeah.
at some point in 2025. So I think we're fine, honestly.
wherever they slot it in.
I just
Yeah.
hope. I don't know if this is gonna happen. I just hope it comes out within the next 12 months. Like, I will be I will wait however long I have to. At least we have gameplay now. But I'm just like, if it's holiday 2025, I'm gonna be like, oh, I can't.
Yeah.
I've waited 7 years, but I don't want to wait 7 more months. I don't know. I'm just kind of like, part of me is thinking after watching that direct, I don't even know when the Switch 2 is going to be revealed. Because it's like, do you want to reveal the Switch 2 right before a big holiday like this one with Mario Party, Mario and Luigi, another Zelda?
Yes.
Like, they very well... Yes. That's the thing, right? I don't know. Like, maybe they're saving it for an early 2025 reveal and it comes out a little later than we think. I'm not even sure at this point. There's so many things that are still unknown about this whole console ordeal. They said it'll be like, they didn't even say a reveal. They would just say an update on the next console, which who knows what that even looks like. But like, they specifically said before the fiscal year ends in March 2025. So I'm just kind of like, are they covering their asses in case it like doesn't get revealed this year? There's just so many things I need to know before I really commit to an answer. But, you know, the theory I've given of it releasing on Switch 1 before Switch 2 is a thing that I'm still convinced of, unless we get a reveal of the Switch 2 this year, which I don't even know. None of us know.
I think we will. It's
Yeah.
only a guess, but that's just my current prediction.
Of course.
I think we're going to see it this year.
I think that's
Yeah,
the difference in our
it-
thinking. That's all it is, because we think it's coming out March, but if it's not, I think you're maybe right.
Right.
They've
I
already
don't
said
even
they're not going to be selling many more Switches at this point. So like, and they've already acknowledged Switch 2. So I don't think it matters either way if they wait 2 months extra to reveal it in September or October, or wait till January. I don't think it matters either way.
Mhm.
We're going to be seeing Switch 2 pretty darn soon.
know.
Yeah. But anyway, let's now dive into what might be even crazier to talk about, and that's just the story and timeline implications from what we got so
really?
far.
I thought we were about to talk about Metroid Prime 7. Like, I'm ready to talk about that.
Holy cow! I mean,
it's a new trilogy.
Yeah,
I think so.
You do think so?
Okay. Yeah, I think so too. I think 100% they're playing a new trilogy with this installment, and who knows? Maybe Silex is not even gonna like be the main villain of this game, but the whole trilogy.
That's been my theory for a long time, and it's still mine. Yes. Sorry, Andres, go ahead.
I just think Silex might. I don't know if they're gonna go this hard on it, but I think he's gonna be a nuanced character. I don't think he's inherently evil, right? He just has his own objectives.
Right.
They might even treat him somewhat like an anti-hero. I don't know. I came up with this nickname with him the other day. I kind of look at him. I've been started referring to him as Daddy Silex because I think he is the father or the adoptive father of at least one Metroid based off Federation Force. So I'm joking, but being serious at the same time.
I was going to say, we know Samus's dad. It's technically Ravenbeak, so
we were
going to go in that direction.
They might be related. There's the theories he's his brother. I don't know, but
I
don't think he's a Chozo. He would have to be. I don't think he's a
Chozo either, Rob. But I don't think he is somebody we know already. Like you said, Andres, the theories about Samus's brother. I just throw those out the window.
Agreed.
Samus's brother is not canon. Let's accept it. He's not canon. And I don't think he's anybody like related to Samus or anything. I think he is somebody who just we will have more nuance to this character. He's not somebody we already know. He is somebody we will know more of as this trilogy goes on, or even as this game goes on. He is somebody that hates the Galactic. There's two things we know about him. He hates the Galactic Federation, and he hates Samus for doing jobs for them. Yeah.
Right.
And
By
like
association,
and like, is it really that wrong to hate the Galactic Federation? Is it?
Yeah, it was brought out in Metroid Prime 3 that they were up to some nefarious stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there are 3 games.
It's been hinted at.
Yeah, 3 games hint at it, which is Prime 3, which is Fusion, and which is Other M. All 3 of them are basically shoving it in your face that like you can't really trust them.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, he will not be straight up a villain, right? Like you said, Andres, he will be somewhat of an anti-hero, I think.
Maybe he's just like a preservationist. Like maybe he's like, hey, listen, stop killing all the Metroids. Become their parent instead.
Yeah, he may see Samus as the enemy because she's helping the Galactic Federation and he's doing the good. He's actually the good guy. And then maybe at some point they meet halfway.
And then
Samus might join Silex's side. Who knows?
Oh, that would be crazy.
Interesting.
That becomes feasible depending on where it is in the timeline. Because, I mean, Rob, I saw your video on this already. Like, you brought up the different timeline possibilities. I think you're probably right. I think it probably takes place after Super Metroid, but before Fusion and Dread. But it's not 100% certain yet. Yeah. So if it's after Dread, Samus could truly turn on the Federation. But I'm not expecting that.
Yeah, I don't know if I would expect that either. But I think eventually we have to see Samus wake up to what they've been planting going back to 2007, that the Federation is not necessarily the most forthright. Now, part of the hints in Fusion and Other M, though, are that, at least what I've always interpreted and what I think it's very obvious, is that the Federation at large might not know that there's a part of the Federation or some people within it that are the ones doing some evil, nefarious acts and trying to harness Metroid power for certain things and their own versions of cloning and whatnot. So it could be the whole Federation is evil. It could be that there are certain factions or people within the Federation doing it under the nose of the Federation. So it gets all kind of messy and confusing.
Sure. But that makes sense, though, because they could clear out the evil and then Samus could still work with them and it's fine.
Exactly. But it would almost be, to your point, really interesting if we just say, okay, the Federation just kind of is evil. And they've been hinting at it so long, it would be very cool to eventually see Samus wake up to that fact and make a real hard conscious decision to turn away from them or try to take them down. Maybe that becomes the new big bad. She's Luke Skywalker, they're the Empire, something like that. Like, why not go that? I think that would be very interesting.
The final boss is Admiral Dane. Let's go.
Somehow Palpatine returned in Metroid Prime 6. Something like that.
I have a question for you guys. I wasn't sure about this.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
So,
I'm sorry?
I have a question for you guys, right? So I agree with the assessment that if there are mock droids, right, that implies that this is at least like Super Metroid after post Super Metroid, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
that becomes interesting, right? Because we also have the 20x9 thing, which seems to fit that as well. But it becomes interesting because I do feel like there is a little bit of that 2D Metroid influence, right? Like if Silex is a parent to a Metroid, there's a connection there because guess what? After Super Metroid, Samus is dealing with a little bit of the grieving because she bonded with the baby Metroid as well. She was a mommy, Metroid, right? And then
The last Metroid.
exactly, right? And so like what's going on with that? But what I want to ask you a question for, because I think this is important. In Federation Force, so I assume Silex hatches this Metroid, but I guess because of the visuals, I'm not certain. Do we know if that's a Metroid or if that's a mock droid?
I need to look back at that footage
to me
again.
is I believe a Metroid.
It's a Metroid.
It's a good.
but,
it's in an egg.
but here's the
Okay,
thing about
makes
Federation
sense.
Force: the time it's confirmed that the year of that game takes place is 20X6, which is 1 year before Super Metroid.
Okay.
So this also, Tanabe also said in my video, I highlighted this, that he wants to have time travel be some kind of a thing for Metroid, the next Metroid game. He said this years ago.
Yes.
So like, there's a weird. We don't know exactly if 20x9 or 20x9 is going to be the only time period. Maybe those portals,
Right.
that the logo, the logo of the black hole, and black holes create time rifts. So like, there's a cool like Star Trek-esque sci-fi element that I love about the potential of this game.
Samus comes out of a portal in the forest area.
Mm-hmm.
She sure does. She sure does. I'm so into the time travel aspect of this game, potentially being part of the story, and I think it could make a lot of sense. I think that it could give us an opportunity to revisit areas that we've revisited before. They have to be really careful to not like Avengers Endgame this, or like even Back to the Future this, where it's like. But also, they could do it in a cool way. What if you see a prior version? What if Samus sees a prior version of herself? Like Back to the Future 2. I think that you could do that the good way, or you could do that the really bad way that kind of jumps the shark. I like Avengers Endgame, but I don't want them to like really do that. Like, let's go back to every famous moment from the Metroid Prime trilogy. Like, don't do that. But you could do some sort of cool thing there. And you bring up the point about the portal thing in that forest shot. I liken that to the dark and light portals from Metroid Prime 2.
Yeah.
Right? So, and Nintendo's done that a few times. They did it in A Link to the Past. They did it in Metroid Prime 2. What if instead of traveling between dark and light, it becomes an Ocarina of Time thing? You travel between two different points in time. And that's what those portals become. So that is a great, great concept to me. And it's a very Nintendo concept that they've already, they've already visited it in Metroid because of Prime 2. So.
Because then you're going back to possibly 20x6 with Federation Force, and you might have to stop Silex from doing whatever he's doing or fix that, because then there's 3 years that, like, factually there's 3 years there. So like anything can happen, and then like maybe you're traveling between the time periods in the same world and trying to fix certain things that happened in the past so they're fixed in the future. And but yeah, like the portal aspect is really cool. And Tanabe basically, he said that's what he wants to do. He wants to have time travel and a story between Silex and Samus be like the main thing for Metroid Prime 4. So like, yeah, man.
It's interesting, right? Because like I've been looking at those interviews like for like the only real material we've had to kind of like talk about Prime 4 over these last 7 years, right? And kind of like a big sticking point with going back to those interviews is that, well, it's been such a long time, are they even relevant anymore? They even restarted the project. But now that we've seen Silex, I think it does add more validity to these interviews, right? So if the whole Silex
and you see this,
right? I mean, it matches up. Like we are seeing evidence of the time travel element as well. And actually, it's interesting about that is if they do that, that provides good context for reintroducing Ridley. Because if this is after Super Metroid, Ridley's dead. But if we go back to the past, guess what? He's not. And Ridley's important. I think Ridley should be in this game.
Watch, there's gonna be Phazon back to somehow. Phazon returned.
Dark Samus comes back from the past.
Oh my god!
Okay.
I hope they don't.
No. He already said that's completely done. The Phazon
good.
and Dark Samus story arc is completely finished. He said that.
Good.
Right.
I
So
hope.
here's-
Just commit to dead things.
I do agree with that, but here's the thing that Dark Samus touches on that I wanted to bring up here, and we also can't forget. It's called Metroid Prime. And so because of that, Metroid Prime as an entity and a pursuit for the space pirates, and yet Phazon was a part of that. So if there's no Phazon, I don't know what they're going to do there. But I think when we think about what Psylux's motivation could be, I think when we think about the idea of time travel, that when we see Samus come across Psylux in the trailer, that means technically we don't know at what point in the timeline that meeting might be. Even though I still think maybe we're kind of resting in like more of whatever the current time of Prime 4 is going to be, 20x9 or whatever. But what if she's running into Psylux in the past, if time travel is even a thing, and maybe that's Psylux trying to go and steal that baby Metroid. Although that wouldn't really make sense because Psylux is with space pirates in that scene, and he's sneaking around space pirates, and so that doesn't make sense. But those
are Prime 3 space pirates.
They are. You're right.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
species.
They are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we have to wait and see because we just don't know. Like, there's so much they can do with the timeline stuff. It's exciting, but Psylux, as far as Metroid Prime is concerned, the Prime aspect, he is the core cause of what makes the next Metroid Prime. Whatever his experiments are with these mock droids or whatever, he's making like an ultimate Metroid Prime, a new variant of
Absolutely.
it. Maybe.
Absolutely. My current running theory, Dave, is pretty much exactly that. I like the concept you guys all kind of introduced that I wasn't factoring is kind of trying to add these layers and nuance to Psylux, and even going potentially so far as Samus and Psylux coming to like a meeting of the minds and like joining forces in a way. I hadn't considered that. It's interesting. I could see it being really good. I'm not really like believing that that's the direction they're going to go, but I'm certainly very open to it. And I love a good nuanced villain. That's actually makes for the best kind of villain.
Oh yeah.
Personally, right now though, I'm still kind of going on the theory I've had for a while that I still think holds true now that we've seen the trailer, that Psylux is going to be fulfilling the same kind of role that Dark Samus filled prior. Even though Dark Samus was the essence of Metroid Prime, and so Dark Samus still was the ultimate final villain, Dark Samus's role in terms of the games was more of not the final boss and more of an antagonist that Samus kept running across and would have to defeat before you actually had to fight the Aurora 313 unit, or you actually fought the Emperor Ing in Metroid Prime 2. And I feel like Psylux might represent that kind of a role in Metroid Prime 4, and maybe even in a whole trilogy, if Psylux is going to continue beyond that. So I'm interested to see if we learn more about who Psylux is, but I don't necessarily need that. I don't mind Psylux just being a bounty hunter. I don't need him to be Samus's brother. I'm with you, Joey. I don't think they're going to bring that long theory into the game. If they did, great. I'm curious to see where they go with it. I don't think they're going to try to do that stuff. I'm okay with Psylux being just another bounty hunter who doesn't like the Federation, doesn't like Samus, and joins forces with the space pirates to try to continue cloning Metroids, hence the mock droids, to recreate and bring Metroid Prime in some form back into the threat of the galaxy. So, to summarize, I do like the idea of the nuanced version of Psylux, and I'm super open to see if they go in that direction. My current prediction, though, is not that. And I think he's just the Psylux we've always known. He hates Samus. They're trying to create Metroid Prime again. That's kind of where.
Here's the thing. Yeah. I don't think Metroid Prime is coming back. I really don't. I really think that Prime story is done. And like, I know like the title of the game is Prime, but at this point, that name has transcended like.
Is it like Super?
Yeah, like it's just the name itself just means that this is this Prime series, and like there was a villain called the Metroid Prime, but at this point, like it doesn't even matter at this point. So at this point, Prime is just a name. What I think is going on kind of is Psylux is trying to steal this device from the Galactic Federation research facility that we caught a glimpse of that looks somewhat like the Prime logo,
star thing or whatever.
Yes, like my buddy Trav guy brought this up too. Like if you looked at it from the side, possibly it could look like that Prime 4 logo that we're seeing right there in Dave's screen. Thank you, Dave, for bringing that up. And we even see a hologram. Like I just did the analysis and I noticed this while watching it in the middle of editing my analysis, that there is a hologram of that exact same black hole logo. Like in that scene where they're trying to get the device away on the gurney from the space pirates. So he's trying to steal this thing to go back in time and do something. do evil things. Like he's trying to.
I do like that idea. Yeah.
He's either trying to prevent the thing that. So I got to think he hates the Galactic Federation for a reason. Maybe they destroyed his. Maybe they killed his family. Maybe they destroyed his race or something. So he's trying to go back in time and prevent that from happening, I feel like. But maybe there's got to be something a little more complicated than that, too. Because he's got Metroids/Mocktroids, whatever they are. Like, it's very well could be a new Metroid design. We don't know that for sure. Nintendo's weird about lore stuff, as we've seen with Zelda. I feel like there's got to be something a little more nefarious he's planning. Either that, or he's just trying to get revenge on the Federation by going back in time and preventing them from doing bad things.
What if he's going back in time to try to bring Metroid Prime back into the future?
Right, that means he's got to bring back Phase on.
Back to the future. Marty.
We have to go back to the future.
What you're saying, Rob, though, made me think of something too, because this is good that we're having this discussion. But yeah, like maybe Silux, whatever he does in the past, maybe he creates something that's out of his control. Like he totally screws things up and he makes something that's just gigantic monster Metroid thing, and it wasn't his intention, and that becomes your final boss. We don't know what it is. You know what I mean? Like just like how in Metroid Prime 2 you're fighting something else gigantic, but then Dark Samus is also there. They could be following a similar beat where he's like whatever he did, he really screwed it up, and maybe it kills him too. You know, you never know.
Yeah. So many possibilities. And this is, don't worry guys, this will all be revealed with the Metroid Prime 4 reports, because Nintendo, for the love of God,
about that today.
They can't keep a secret about Metroid to save their life. They just casually revealed, oh yeah, that Chozo race, there's some still around. And I'm just like, it would have been way cool if you just saved that for the game, buddy.
Yeah,
like
seriously.
They're probably going to reveal like her beams and upgrades. I would imagine.
Oh, they're going to reveal everything before the game comes out, and I'm going to be so annoyed.
Not the story though.
Yeah. How do you guys feel about the beams? By the way, like I want them to bring back the switching of the beams. I really liked that mechanic.
Yeah,
but
me too.
Even though I don't want it from the footage, and again, you know, the footage is just the first. Take any big Nintendo game teaser. That first teaser doesn't tell us that much. Like, right? So we really don't know everything. They could be holding back a lot. But from what we saw, it doesn't look like Samus can change her beam cannons. It's at least not apparent through like the HUD, right? But we do have multiple options outside of missiles, though, which is interesting with the little D-pad
I think
thing.
it's a good point. I think too early. I think it's too early to know for sure. They could go in either direction. I'm with you though, Andres. I personally, in the Prime games, the trilogy, I like switching beams. Well, I shouldn't say the trilogy because 3 didn't have that. They went back to what they called, I think, weapon stacking, which is what the 2D games do, and it's what Prime 3 did. I'm a big fan of the actual just kind of switch. And it's funny, I'm actually replaying, surprise, Metroid Prime Remastered. I was playing it earlier this morning again, too. I'm almost done with it. I'm through the phase on mines now. And it's like, I just kind of like the beam switching, and you know, Prime 2, it doesn't get spoken enough about, and I actually don't really know even how general Metroid fans feel about it. So I'll ask you guys, how do you feel about Prime 2 handling the concept of ammo? Do we ever go back to that again? You didn't like it. Okay.
I don't like it. Get it away from me. but I understand the strategy behind it, but I'm also just kind of like, go back to how you used to do it.
Yeah, I just want to feel comfortable using my beams. Like I like to mess around with the environment. Like they give you a way to interact. And when you put ammo, you're like, oh, well, now I can't use it that often. You have to be selective, and it's less fun that way. It's more frustrating. We already have to worry about missiles and super bombs. Like that's another thing to worry about that I don't want to.
I've live streamed Prime 2 many times, and a common thing I hear in the chat, they don't like the ammo, and they don't like having to go between the light and dark world because they don't like the dark world having so much limitations on their movement and health going down, which of course is mitigated about 2 or 3 hours into the game more after you beat that dark boss that gives you the dark suit. Yeah. But still, I can understand why there's a lot of things that people. There was like a lot of barriers with Metroid Prime 2, and that was one of them that kind of didn't help. So yeah, I don't think Prime any Metroid game had any ammo, right? That was the only one. I mean,
just Prime 2. Yeah, really just. Yeah. Well, you could argue the Aeon abilities in Samus Returns, you know, because what is the super missile blaster thing?
I forgot what that's called.
But they, the Aeon energy kind
they
of
didn't recharge in Returns. It
recharged
in 2017.
It recharged in Dread and Returns for sure.
Yeah.
I think Aeon
No, you
recharged.
had to collect the Aeon stuff from killing enemies.
Okay, so in Dread they regenerated then. In Dread,
yeah, but just your beam though. Yeah, you weren't using ammo.
But just your beam, yeah, exactly. So only the Dark and Light beam and the Annihilator beam, only those in Metroid Prime 2 had ammo. So, yeah, I just wanted to ask that question. I don't mind it, but it's also, I think it's both one of the coolest qualities to Metroid Prime 2, but definitely one of the most hindering qualities, because they created a really complex game very brilliantly around the mechanics of the Dark and Light world, the Dark and Light suit, and the Dark and Light beams and the ammo. And I think it really comes together in a brilliant game, but it is very hard, and it is a huge barrier for entry, and it does go against a lot of the best qualities of the other Metroid games. So it's both something I love and appreciate about that one game, but I don't think it's something they need to revisit for those exact reasons.
I think having different beams open different doors is great. They'll probably hopefully they return to that, or just have upgrades for your current beam that gives you the ability to open certain doors. I don't think it should be ammo based.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we could probably go on forever, but I feel like we've covered a lot of big points. Is there anything else you guys would like to address before we call it a show?
Oh,
everyone buy Metroid Prime 4 when it comes out.
I
yes,
agree.
buy Metroid Prime 4.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll be buying it twice.
Buy it twice, even.
Least.
Exactly. If there is a Switch 2 version, I'll buy it twice.
I'll be doing multiple giveaways on my channel for the game.
Yes.
There you go. Go to Dave's channel.
That's how you do it.
I have to just drop one last time to get a read on everyone's thoughts, because my current prediction has shifted based on my last video about the timeline, but I still want to bring up that I think it is on the table, and let's step away from the time traveling. Let's just forget that and just talk about 20X9 Prime 4 taking place where it takes place. I want to reiterate that I think, Mocktroids or not, there is the possibility, even though I feel it's less likely, that this game could be the furthest in the timeline, even after Metroid Dread. As I brought up in my video, I know it's very long. Andres, you said you watched it, but it's okay if anyone hasn't seen it. I brought up how Samus's gunship and her suit contradicts this game taking place after Metroid Dread. However, because of Nintendo's wonkiness with the lore, I think there is a chance that it could take place at the end of after Dread. It's not my prediction. How would you guys feel about it if they did that? And we have to remember that in a world where they choose to do that, that means we're after Metroid Fusion as well, and Metroid Dread, and Samus has Metroid DNA within her. Would they and could they incorporate that into Prime 4? I'm just curious the wider group's thoughts about that concept.
Personally, I think it's not before or not after Fusion and Dread. I do think it's possible though. Like you said, I don't really think it's impossible. I just don't. There's no visual cues that hint that it is besides the year, but also we don't know the year of Fusion or Dread. We don't know the year, but we do know the year for Federation Force, and we do know the year for Prime 4 now. Mm-hmm. So that's all we know. So like I'm leaning more towards it not being after Dread.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I still even think
no indication from Samus that it is either.
Mm-hmm. I still think even knowing the cosmic years isn't helpful at all, because I feel like it's so inconsistent. Even like Nintendo's own staff don't even know how that cosmic calendar works. Like you might have a point though, because if Kensuke Tanabe oversees all these games, maybe he has a better understanding. But even still, like a Nintendo UK wrote that Federation Force is set several years after Prime 3, which doesn't make any sense at all. So I don't even know if I don't. Yeah, I don't give any weight to the cosmic calendar year. Hopefully Prime 4 is the game that like clears that up a lot. But
or makes it worse. Time travel.
Time travel.
Zelda style.
Make it tricky. Yeah.
Seriously. It's crazy.
Well, I just think it's worth noting. I don't even disagree with you guys, and like I said, I have since shifted my prediction to around the time of Other M, basically between Super Metroid and Fusion is probably where I think it is now. But when you bring up the cosmic year point, I just think the simple fact that they included the cosmic year in the first reveal of the game, it's the first thing they show us. So that at least tells me that Nintendo and Retro are thinking about it, and it's probably important to this game. That's
Yeah,
Yeah.
watch. It's only in the trailer, and it's not even in the
Yeah.
final game.
Oh,
That's what
oh my God.
I feel like. That's a possibility too, but you never know. You never know.
It's the first Prime game they've ever actually shown the year on the screen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you don't count Federation Force, which they also
yeah.
show on the screen.
They might
Yeah.
really
Okay.
care about the
I
story
don't count
this
that
time.
game hardly.
I mean,
Nobody does.
I think so, Andres.
maybe
Yeah.
there's even a little bit of hey, listen, there's been a lot of complaints about the story of Zelda, right? Like maybe they want to kind of come in from a slightly different direction. It's like, hey, listen, this is not an open world game, but this is a very story centric game. So maybe Nintendo may want to kind of try and fill that niche a little bit potentially. We'll see, obviously, right? I'm just throwing out ideas here. But here's another dart for you, right? I agree. Game probably is before Fusion and Dread, right?
Yeah.
But it is interesting to me that we have not gotten a look of how at Samus herself behind the visor, because it's when we get a good look at the visor up close, her face is obscured by the reflection of Silex, so we don't see how she actually looks, right? So there could be, like if Samus has some more Metroid traits that affect her physical appearance now, which is also confusing because the way Dread ended, it looked like it was wiped, but maybe not. We don't know how that might have developed. So there's obviously a lot of ifs and ands, and we're not sure. But I'm just saying, I think it's interesting that we haven't gotten a good look at her face yet.
Mhm.
Well, what's worth
I don't think that
about,
means anything. I'm
Probably
sorry.
not.
I'm just gonna
No,
say
go ahead,
real
go ahead.
quick.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say real quick. I don't think it means anything, and they just didn't put it in this trailer. Yeah, I don't even know like how Samus even looks outside of that suit, because we know her suit changed, which it's always so funny to me. It's just like, we need you to really understand she's a Metroid now. So not only has her appearance changed on the inside, on the outside too. But yeah, I don't know if that means. I think we'll see her face.
But
more often.
that made sense though, because the events of Fusion tells us that she becomes more fused to her suit, and her suit is
true.
a representative of her DNA and her blood and everything. So that's kind of why I think why we all thought that was an incredible way to end Metroid Dread. I mean, just absolutely mind-blowing. I was screaming. I just thought it was the coolest thing in the world. When it comes to her visor, though, you bring up Andres, we've seen evidence, and I know I'm the one who will always reference Other M, but Other M is a great example where we see her visor shift into like combat mode and to non-combat mode. And when it's in non-combat mode, you can see her eyes and her face behind it. But when she's like, oh crap, got to do something, her visor goes whoosh, and kind of looks more like we see in the close-up of Prime 4.
Is that why we see like the crosses on the visor?
I
that
think
might
so.
Be,
Maybe
that's
the texture.
okay. That makes sense. I mean, there's
you're
obviously a battle going on, so
Yeah.
So
that
if it's
could be
around
it.
that time, and
Yeah.
also
And they don't show her face usually in trailers for these games anyway. That's like a reward at the very end of the game when you like 100% it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
I mean, like in Prime, because in the Prime trilogy, we could still see her eyes through her visor, though. I think that's
the reflection.
mainly what Andres is referring to, maybe.
Yeah,
but
that is. But still, I mean, maybe they want to keep that shrouded in some mystery for us to actually play the game and get a good look at her. So
I am excited to see her without a helmet or zero suit or something, because that doesn't really happen in the 2D games. Other than Zero Mission, they added that. We talked about that before we started recording. But in all three Prime games, we see her take her helmet off. Or in Prime 3, she's totally... Actually, wait, in Prime 2 also, you see her without her suit entirely. So I'm just excited to just kind of see... Because to me, it's important as... I just really like Samus. Like, she's my favorite gaming character. So as much as I love Samus as a badass in her suit, I like the fact that as the series has evolved over the last 20 years... They've put Samus, the woman and the person, a little bit more into the forefront. Dread did not do that, other than talking, her DNA and stuff. But so I would like to see. I'm not saying I want to play as her in her Zero suit, but I like the fact that we've gotten to know more of who she is, and it's why I am a defender of Other M in a lot of ways, despite its many flaws. I like the fact that they were exploring her as a person. So I'm excited in Prime 4 to at least. Even if it's just seeing her, because these games notoriously show us her face without her helmet on. I'm excited to see that coming off of Dread that didn't show her at all.
You know what
That's
I want?
just a personal preference. Yeah.
What I want personally, I want to see Samus like outside of a mission. I don't know when they do it, how they do it. I'm not saying it has to be in Prime.
Just chilling with a cup of coffee?
Yeah, I want to see her like where she lives. Does she live in an apartment? Does she have a mansion? Right? Like what planet? I
You
want to
the
see
Metroid
her
cozy
day-to-day
game.
life. Yeah, I want the Metroid cozy game, or I want to see Samus in a bar and then get into a fight. I don't know.
Isn't that what? Don't they? Isn't she in a bar like at the end of Zero Mission or something? Like there was an end screen where she's at a bar.
I didn't
forget what
notice
game
it when
that
I beat
was.
it last night.
I think you have to get like a specific time or percentage to see like
that's what it is. Yeah.
she's chilling at a bar and an alien's like it looks like Star Wars. Like,
but that's what I want to see. I want to see that, right? So now I'll probably have to go back to Zero Mission and get all my items.
I think we have to. I love that idea, Andres, because I just gushed for a few minutes about how much I love Samus as a character, and I want to continue exploring her. So like, yeah, do like the Mass Effect version or something where we just get a little bit of a glimpse of her life between missions or something. I would,
maybe
what's
there
her
could be
apartment
like
look
one single flashback scene that's playable. Like it only happens once in the game, but you at least get that one like 5 to 10 minute moment, and you're like, okay, well that's what it is, and now we know.
And
you
playable
know her
flashback
sure.
is. Go ahead.
Yeah, and
Love
you
her.
know her apartment doesn't even have like a bed frame or something. You know
Probably
the
not.
ideal male apartment where it's just a
mattress
fold
on
up
the
chair
floor.
and a
Yeah.
mattress and a TV. That's what because she's never home.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. It's probably something simple like that. Maybe she probably has a plant because her cat would die. Or
She got
I mean-
a Metroid plushie.
Yeah, in all reality, I think it's the insinuation has always been that she kind of lives on her ship. Is sort of what
Yeah,
I've gotten from it.
It does look like it.
that could
There's
be
a
it,
comic
yeah.
that shows her in like a space station, like apartment type quarters type thing. Before one of the games, either before Super Metroid or before Other M. So yeah, she does have some type of like space station apartment somewhere.
A living quarters.
Yeah, like a living quarters. Yeah, but it's never, of course, never showed in the game.
Maybe
Yeah.
that's why she still works for the Federation Force, because rent is so expensive that they give her free room and board.
Could be.
Yeah.
It's dangerous territory, man, because I think that a
Yeah.
lot of the wider fans would probably push back, because I think we've seen evidence that a lot of people just don't want a lot of that stuff explored, and I understand why to a degree. People made the comparison even with like Boba Fett, like maybe don't show us too much about who this person is. And so, and because of the reception to Other M, some of it warranted, in my opinion, some of it not. I think that Nintendo's very, very cagey with that stuff. Makes me sad because I want it like you do, Andres, but I think that they would be very hesitant to go down that road. And the more mysterious Samus is, I think the more people like that.
You know what's
Personally.
interesting though, right? Metroid Prime 4 has a lot of potential. Because I think it's an opportunity for it's funny, like I think I get a little defensive about this because I'm pretty sure I'm the one that popularized the phrase Metroid Prime 4's Breath of the Wild moment. If you search that on YouTube, those two keywords, my videos first, like from a year ago, and then a few other people made videos on it, and now some articles are like,
Look
it's
what
not
you
going to be the
did.
Breath of the Wild moment. It's my fault. But my point isn't that I think it's going to be Breath of the Wild. It's just that I think it's going to be evolve the series and get a little bit more popular. That's really the main point, right? But so the point I'm trying to make right now though is that like Metroid Prime 4, if it does help to bring back the series to like popularity, like think back to the early 2000s, we had a lot of Metroid games, a lot of different kinds of Metroid games. I wouldn't hate that if that were to happen again. Obviously, take your time with Prime, take your time with 2D Metroid, right? Like make those masterpieces. But if we have like a Federation Force spin-off series, right? If you want to give us another pinball, if you want to give us Paper Metroid, where we do get to see Samus in her apartment, I'd love that.
I would
It's
play
one of the
that
reasons I love
game
Paper
in
Mario.
a heartbeat. Yeah, that would be very
Yeah.
exciting. Well, it goes back to the Federation Force thing, and I know we're probably trying to wrap this up. We've been going for a while, but I agree with you. I think that Nintendo can only, I think, experiment with those things when we're comfortable knowing Metroid is back the way we want it. That was
Right.
exactly the reason Federation Force failed, like we talked about, is because the last game was Other M, which most people didn't like, even though I like it. And so that was not the best time to reveal Federation Force, a spin-off that's multiplayer 3DS without Samus, and not also have announced another game, alongside of that. So you're right. You can do a pinball and you can do a Paper Metroid or whatever now, because we just had Dread, we just had Prime Remastered, we just saw Prime 4. So who cares if they do a spin-off Metroid game that a lot of people won't like, because you got Prime 4 coming.
Yep.
And those of us who
Yeah.
are open to the spin-offs will play it, but the other people can just ignore it and not be mad at it,
Potential.
True.
Mm.
A lot of it. Yeah. Anyways, I feel like we've wrapped it up.
Yep.
Dave, where can people find you?
SuperMetalDave64 on YouTube and SMLDave64 on Twitter. I do Metroid. I do tech videos on Switch 2, and I'll also live stream gameplay as well. If you like Metroid Prime or Metroid gameplay on live playthroughs, come and check me out. Thanks for having me on.
You play upgraded versions too on the PC. Your modded versions are so cool looking.
They look good.
Graphics mods, yeah.
It's a good way to get, like, especially like for your Metroid streams. It's a good way, like, if we get a remaster for Prime 2 and 3, gives us maybe a ballpark of what they may look like.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Rob, what do you got going on?
Well, all I have going on right now is Metroid Prime 4. It's the only thought in my brain right now. I've been
maybe
talking
Zelda,
about
though. Maybe a little bit.
Yeah, I tweeted about it, man. Like, I actually really want to talk about that new Zelda game, but I am so just all I can think about is Metroid. So, as far as where you can find me, my YouTube channel is Rule of Two Review, and that's the same on Twitter, where I tweet about Metroid all the time. And all I'm doing right now is making Metroid videos, and I will be making a Zelda video soon about Echoes of Wisdom, because I do want to talk about it. But a lot of Metroid right now.
Epic, awesome.
Good.
And Joey, how about you? Where can people find you?
You can find me in my cryo chamber, where I have the timer set to Metroid Prime 4's release date, hopefully whenever that may be. I don't want to be in that cryo chamber forever. Otherwise, it's an Alien to Aliens situation. But seriously, you can find me on youtube.com/GameExplain. I just, as of recording this, just came out with my 22-minute Metroid Prime 4 trailer analysis, which I am very proud of. So feel free to check that out. You might find some things in there that you didn't notice before.
Yeah, I think you mentioned you had your hands on like 4K, like 4K rendered footage.
It wasn't 4K rendered. Somebody, I forget who, tweeted uncompressed trailers from the Nintendo Direct, one of them being Prime 4. So it was still HD, but it was uncompressed, so the quality is just way better than what you'd find on YouTube.
Wow.
Cool. Yeah, so high detailed stuff. Guys, make sure to check them all out. They are all covering Metroid Prime 4 and beyond extensively. So check them out. They will all be linked in the description below. But thank you for coming by. I had a good time, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.